You and then Mike.
Hi, my name is Ibtisam Azim, Al Arab Al Jadid newspaper. Good to see you again. I have two follow-ups. First, on the issue of suspension of Israeli membership or to the UN. If you could elaborate on that, and whether you believe this is something that will get a majority in the General Assembly. And then my other question is regarding third parties' role in the war that's going on, whether it has to do with delivering weapons, I mean, their responsibility when it comes to international law, and the lack of them taking any steps and basically supporting. So the accountability for not only for Israel but also for third parties. And the last thing, in your remarks today to the committee, you talked about the lack of empathy that you are seeing by some member states in not even expressing any empathy for the Palestinian victims. Could you, and also the issue of the many states talking about human rights in academic context or theoretical context, but when it comes to the issue of Palestinian human rights, they are even attacking students, they're not allowing or attacking people who demonstrate against the war. If you could also touch on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. First of all, I should briefly respond on the second question. Sorry, I missed it. Regarding resistance, and I think I've said it before, including in this venue, that there is no question that the Palestinians have the right to resist under international law, like all people who are oppressed and who cannot enjoy the right of self-determination. The right to resist is to a people what the right to self-defense is to a state. And in the same way, it has limits. So it cannot, neither can touch civilian life. Civilian life is sacred and should always be protected. So I think that we should always remind ourselves and respect the fact that October 7 has been an unspeakable tragedy for the Israelis who call that event the worst terrorist attack they've ever suffered. And as I've said before, for me, those were surely war crimes to the extent they targeted, they hit civilians, and should have been met by justice. This didn't legitimize the attack on the Palestinians, like if they were the nation responsible, because they were not. And again, this should have prompted a reflection on the causes, on the root causes that have led to that horrific day, which is a horrific day both for the Israelis and the Palestinians, I want to underline, although I think that this is not the day the genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza started. And is it correct that only the Palestinians are denied of this right? No, I don't think so. I think that after 9/11, there is an increasing intolerance for people's claims for self-determination. And again, we are no longer in the decolonization era, where the right to resist was to an extent even celebrated. To an extent, we are in an era where resistance is often seen and labeled as terrorism. This is the reality for the Palestinians and others. Concerning the suspension, so there are different issues there, but what I refer to is Article 6 of the UN Charter, which says that when a member of the United Nations persistently violates the principles contained in the UN Charter, it might be expelled from the organizations, and there should be a decision of the General Assembly upon recommendation of the Security Council. There have been cases where the impasse of the Security Council has been circumvented by a decision of the General Assembly to act, for example, uniting for peace. And this might be one opportunity to consider in this case as well. But I would like to take this opportunity to stress that, again, this is not what prompted me to make that recommendation is not the fact that Israel violates international law full stop. Israel violates international law from its birth, and international law includes UN Security Council resolution and General Assembly resolution Israel has violated, including the UN resolutions that it committed to abide by as a condition to become a member of the General Assembly of the United Nations, and orders and decisions of the International Court of Justice. And again, this year, the escalation of violence and attacks against the United Nations sets a terrible precedent that, if left unpunished, might also encourage other states to resort to the same kind of venomous reactions toward the United Nations, losing all respect for these organizations. And this should not happen. This is why I think it's time to take an exemplar step. Considering why did I mention the lack of empathy? Because I don't know if I have the fortune or misfortune to always present my reports to the General Assembly after the Commission of Inquiry, which has a team of investigators and so carries out a very thorough work of collection of evidence. And again, for the third time, I heard the member states criticizing the mandate of the Commission, which means they don't even interact with their counterparts in Geneva, who have toned down their criticism toward the Commission and appreciate the work it does, instead of engaging on the substance. And I've heard member states mentioning again October 7. I understand. I mean, it's not that I criticize that, but like if history started on October 7, forgetting the 56 years of oppression and the tens of thousands, if no more, Palestinians who had been killed, let alone the 1 million people who had been arbitrarily detained, including many children. So it's a bit preposterous, and the fact that 17,000 children have been killed. And this was not even mentioned, together with the full destruction of Gaza, it made me realize that, no, life is not worth the same, and Palestinian life is less worth. This is, for some member states, this is a fact. And I'm also annoyed by the fact that this issue, which is so sensitive to millions, because again, the life of the Palestinians first and foremost, but also the life of the Israelis, for many of them, is hell since last year. And there is this sort of let's pick a side attitude in the General Assembly, one side and the other, that again it bears testament to the loss of humanity that has penetrated this institution. The comment I made on human rights and the fact that there has been an erosion of the value of human rights in the last 12 months was prompted by the fact that member states who praise themselves as defenders of human rights and sponsors of human rights, including in their international relations, have not hesitated, have engaged in forms of repression and cracking down fundamental freedoms of their own citizens. In Europe, including of Jewish people who are standing in solidarity with the Palestinians. for what they were going through. And this is very, it's very telling of the bizarre time we live in. But especially when it comes to students who are, in a way, the most powerful, but also the most powerful. They've been the most powerful voice speaking truth to power, but also they're still the most frail part of the society because they are investing a lot in building their future, and many of them have seen their future undermined, sacrificed for standing for justice. And what kind of message are liberal universities in the liberal West sending to the students? Yes, we can teach human rights from our podiums in universities, but then don't dare fighting to have them becoming a reality for all, because this is not your job. Basically, this is the message that is being sent.
About third party?
Third-party responsibility is, there is a clear obligation, which is a general principle of international law of state responsibility. When there is an international wrongdoing of any sort, violations of international law, human rights law, international humanitarian law, every state has the responsibility not to recognize the legal consequences of the wrongful act, and not to engage, not to aid and assist in the commission of the wrongful act, but rather acting to lead to the cessation of the same and ensure reparations. Nothing of this has been done. But now we are also in a context where, as the International Court of Justice has recognized the plausibility of the genocide could be committed already in January, this triggered the application of the Genocide Convention, meaning the obligation to prevent genocide, for which you don't have to wait to have acts of genocide fully completed and a people or a group completely destroyed. You need to act so that genocide doesn't take place. And so an arms embargo was a clear obligation the day after the court has issued those provisional measures. Instead, the international community has followed Israel on its attack against UNRWA, and so has continued. I mean, member states continue to trade with Israel and to transfer weapons.